Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for attending How to Fill a Struggling Therapy Practice webinar featuring Miranda Palmer. Miranda Palmer is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she's been helping therapists create private practices that work since 2008. She's helped therapists in tiny towns and big cities all over the world from just about every specialty. As the co-founder of the longest running and most thorough business school for therapists, she has the expertise to help you see what will work for you right now, for your niche, for your community. Learn more about what she does and working with her at Zinni, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, zinnime.com. I'm your host, Andrea. I'm your host, Andrea Camp, sales manager with Therapy Sites, and we specialize in building websites and online marketing solutions for mental health professionals like yourselves. I'd like to personally welcome each and every one of you to this free educational event. During today's session, Miranda is going to ask some questions to you, and we'd love for you to participate. So if you want to take a look at your GoToWebinar control panel, on there you'll see a questions tab. Feel free to use this tab to answer any questions, ask any of your own questions, and make any comments that you may have along the way. After the webinar has been concluded, we do have a quick survey. We'd love to hear your feedback. So now that we've got all that taken care of, let's meet our presenter, Miranda Palmer. Take it away, Miranda.
Hey everybody, I know you're here because you want to be able to deeply help people. There is nothing more frustrating than loving clinical work, loving working with clients, having that draw in your heart to open up a private practice and then to see your calendar or your bank account empty. So today we're going to be talking about how to fill a struggling practice and in a way that really makes sense for you as a therapist who loves what they do, right? I think it's really important to know, like, this is for therapists by therapists. Both of the co-founders, we are both licensed marriage and family therapists, and we want other therapists to make sure that they're holistically building their businesses as therapists, but also that they have room for their actual life, because the burnout thing is not okay, right? So today our purpose is to talk about how you can achieve their dreams in private practice. When we're talking about filling up your caseload, we're really talking about so much more. Having a full practice, seeing clients you love, and enjoying life, right? Not just one or the other. It's the big picture of your business and your life dancing together in harmony. So let's hear it from you in the chat. Are you ready to fill your private practice without the burnout, with more ease and joy? You'll be making a few key decisions today that can truly change everything about your life and your private practice. So we're gonna train for about 40 minutes, and then we're going to do some Q&A, because we know that there's only so much your brain can take in, and we wanna make sure that there's time for you to ask your questions, get answers, and feel like you're leaving with a true plan of action today. So you're here because your dream of that full, easy practice, leaving with joy at the end of the day, isn't happening yet. You want to figure out how to fill your practice, and you have to have it be easy. You don't want to be stressing about your caseload. You want to just be focused on doing what you love, doing the great work. And you want to feel joy on a daily basis at work and at home, and you really deserve joy. So let's tap into what it's like when we're in this phase of practice, right? Closing your eyes if it's safe to do so. And just taking a few deep breaths just to kind of like, just to kind of drop into this moment. And I want you to hold out your left hand. And in this hand is your dream practice. What's the dream? What do you want your practice to look like? How many clients? What does your office or even your screen look like? What's behind you and ahead of you? What does it feel like when you open up your bank account or you do your bookkeeping at the end of the month? When you open up your practice management system, when you see another missed call from a new client or a new consultation scheduled. Just notice what it looks, feels, the emotions that come up. When you tap into that dream practice. Now I'm going to invite you to hold out your right hand. And in that hand, I want you to just notice what your practice is like today. Without any judgment. Notice how it feels to look at your bank account or your schedule, how you feel at the end of the day. Notice the ideal clients that you have and maybe even the less than ideal clients that you have. Really give yourself a chance to just notice it. Is it providing for you? Does it feel confident? Do you trust it? Is it a relationship that you're proud of, that feels easeful? Right? So as you look at that, I want you just to kind of notice for a moment, without any judgment, that space between where you're at now and where you really dream of being. Right? Notice that honest look at your situation and your private practice. Notice kind of the tension between those things, the sensations in your body, maybe even the emotions that come up. And take that deep breath in and consider sharing in the chat if you choose, right? What things come up when it comes to your private practice? You're here because you want it to be full, and when things don't feel like they're working, a couple of things can happen, right? Sometimes we feel shame, we panic, we compare, we avoid, we blame, we seek out quick fixes. The truth is, when things aren't running smoothly, when there's this big disparity between our dream practice and our current practice, when filling our caseload feels hard, or we just aren't feeling the joy in our practice that we thought we would, a lot of feelings and reactions can come up for us, right? Any of you, have you been somewhere along this place? Feel maybe even that like feeling like this shutdown place, right? We're avoiding the marketing and then we're feeling shame because we're not marketing, and then we're feeling panic because we're not marketing. So then we shut down even more, and then we blame all these other things, and some of them are real issues. And then we compare and go, well, wait, that person, they're not even a good therapist. How can they be full? I don't understand. And then we feel shame, and then we shut down more, and then we panic more, and we end up in this cycle, right? And those feelings impact our approach and our response to what's going on in our business, particularly in our marketing. Too often, if there's a lack of trust or confidence in your business providing you referrals, it comes from a lack of a plan. So if there's tension and stress, we can get pretty random and scattered with our actions. We need to stop those random acts of marketing in our practices, slow down, and be really intentional. And we don't just want any plan, we want one that's easeful and effective. So before you jump in with which social media platform you're going to post that lip sync video to, you need three things. First, you need to get out your calendar. How are you showing up for your practice beyond the clinical sessions? If you have 10 open sessions per week, are you using that time to nurture your business and market your business, right? We need to make sure that there's not just time for the clinical work and the administrative work, but also for the marketing, the creativity, the professional growth, and all the other time you need for you and your life. Often people are working really hard in their business. You might be working 60 hours all told between documentation and stress and treatment plans and all the rest of it. But when you actually look at how much time that you carved out for marketing, there may be no time available to you. Once you make the time, You've got to show up and protect that time. Anyone ever have that experience where you see your clients, like you're there on time, you do all the things, like you are there for your clients, but when the stuff on your calendar related to working on your business, that gets shuffled or exchanged for a doctor's appointment, for lunch with a friend, or for messing with little games on your phone, or just that checkout time that you're needing, right? And before you know it, weeks pass and you haven't really been consistent in showing up for your business outside of the clinical work. You also need these marketing essentials, right? Clarity on what you offer, right? Do you actually know what you offer besides just saying, I'm a therapist, right? Do you have a compelling transformational marketing message? Do people who don't really understand what therapy is or have never been in the room with you, do they understand what you do? And we need a website that can easily be found and some key relationships. We need people who understand you and who like, know, and trust you, who can refer to you. Now, have you ever had that problem, that experience of sitting down in front of a listing? Maybe it's Psychology Today or Therapy Den or a page on your website, and feeling that panic creep in of 1,000 things both being present in your head. Or worse, you finally put something into writing that you think is crystal clear, and then crickets, nobody calls. You are not alone. Grad school taught us to talk in jargon and to write research papers. It did not tell us how to talk and connect with real people in a written format. If you're going to market something, you have to know what it is and be able to translate that into words your ideal client, aka a lay person who doesn't know all the jargon, is going to immediately say, yes, that is what I need. That is what I'm looking for. From individual therapy to group therapy to intensives, whether it's a 45-minute session to extended session, whether you're doing brain spotting, somatic therapy, art therapy, dance therapy, yoga therapy, let's start with getting really clear on what you're offering, the format, and the timeline. And it's really tempting to try to offer all the options to your potential clients, and yet more options can make it more confusing for potential clients. Joanne Kim used to see anybody and everybody that was assigned to her. Then she started her private practice and started to clarify what her magic is. I want you guys to hear how she describes therapy with her. Quote, how does therapy work? A heads up, I'm not the typical talk therapist. I'm not interested in you sitting on the couch with me for years. I want you to jump in, all in, do the hard work, heal well, and get on with living your full life. It's about damn time you took care of your needs and dreams too. Instead of putting out fires, I want to find out and deal with what's causing them in the first place. Once all the dust has settled, we'll get to repairing what's broken, and then even dream about all you want to see happen in your life. Then we'll get to planning and building so that you can actually enjoy what you've created. Weekly 50-minute session for 40-ish weeks, so we build and work off of good momentum. Using the Enneagram to discover your patterns of thinking, feeling, and doing that create those painful and rigid knots in your life and relationships. Using brain spotting to massage out more stubborn, trauma-based knots that you can't just work out by yourself. Making incremental but lasting changes to how you live and create new muscle memory. Finding relief and gaining access to your whole being so you can live and love well in ways both you and your loved ones need, end quote. Breathe that in for a second. Do you have clarity of who she is and how she works? She's just about as clear about who she works with and how the work transformed them. But let's just notice a few things about what we know from reading just one portion of her webpage. She knows how she works. She knows what works. She knows the outcomes. She even knows how long it takes to make that outcome a reality on average. How did she find that out? She did outcomes work with her clients. She attuned. She listened intently to feedback. She tracked her statistics, and she focused on getting better and better over time. That allowed her to speak with confidence about how she works and to give potential clients real informed consent. We got this update from Joanne August of 2023, like last year, about a year ago. Quote, well, just paid off my husband's student loans in full, so we are now debt free. Paid off $89,000 in student loans and car loans and purchased a home in the frickin' Silicon Valley. Now with 3 totally different businesses that are growing. It's been 6 years since that Freebies Any Me webinar back in 2017. I hit all of my 5-year vision goals 2.5 years early, even with an international vacation every year. This is wild. Also set up an arrangement where before I start a new thing or take on a new project, I need to get the green light from my 2 closest people. I think this is important to know, right? Sometimes when we look at these things, it can just get kind of overwhelming, right? Of like, wait, that's a lot. Like, what do we do? But this is what happens, right? This is what it takes to get full with the waiting list. Not only is Joanne full, but she's thriving financially. Remember, it isn't just about being full, it's about creating a sustainable business. So let's take a moment and pause here. You are the offer, you are the person. Working with you, or maybe your employees if you're a group practice owner, is what we're talking about here. It's important to take time to value yourself, not just monetarily, but to truly understand what you provide. Too often we water down who we are and what we do. We use language that makes us all sound and look the same. I'm a good listener, I'm non-judgmental, I'm empathetic, I have a safe space creator, I'm professional and knowledgeable. But all of you are unique and amazing. This is powerful work. And because it is often done in isolation, we can assume that others do what we do, but it's impossible. 2 people providing even a structured therapy like EMDR are still going to do it differently because they're unique people in a unique relationship that cannot be replicated. So let's practice. We want you to share. Be proud of what makes you special, right? What do clients say about what it's like to work with you? Share in the chat. Just take a moment and see what that might feel like. To be honest and say, wow, people say my sense of humor gives them hope. Wow, people say it is like a light at the end of the tunnel. Wow, people say that they suddenly, like, they make the connections that they've been struggling with their whole life, right? So when you know how you help and what you're offering, then you can have a compelling message, right? One that helps the client feel seen and understood before the first call or session, connecting to the pain and eliciting hope with action, right? Here's another example from a play therapist in Denver. Your kid is a great little human, but some days the things they say, do, and experience are so intense and you're at a loss of what they need or how to respond. Your kid is creating chaos in the home and you just need some peace and reassurance that it won't always be this hard. My name is Erin and I'm a registered play therapist in Denver, Colorado. I'm an expert in all things kids. I can help you finally get to the bottom of what your unique child needs to thrive, experience joy, and be healthy. As a child therapist, I know that children will work towards healing when given support and some guidance. As a play therapist, I support children as they explore challenges, learn new skills, and become emotionally empowered through creative, expressive, dramatic, and recreational play. I partner with you during parent feedback and parent consultation sessions by linking what your child is working on during their sessions to practical information and strategies that you can use at home. Providing the child with support in session, linking to support outside of session will get to the bottom of your child's needs so you and your family feel confident, able to regulate emotions, and be in flow. Contact me today to get help moving you and your child from challenge to connection, right? Now let's think about Erin's marketing message. Where was she located, right? Notice I didn't put where she was located in the slide. That was all in her copy. Her copy lets Google know that play therapy in Denver is where she wants to show up on Google searches. Many of us assume that we just put up a website and a great message and some sort of magic happens, but Google doesn't know where you are or what you do unless you say it in clear language, the type of language that a layperson would type in. Another essential to your marketing is having a findable website, meaning when someone types in counseling in your city or EMDR therapist in your city, you are there with the information and that compelling message. And we aren't just talking about online marketing. Also, y'all, we want a balance of offline too. That's why your relationships are part of the essentials, making time, creating connections. Remember, we are pros at relationships and like having deep connections. Many of us already have those relationships in our life. We can leverage who we know and even who they know. Have those that you know connect you with other people who work with your potential clients. You're not starting from scratch. I know sometimes it can feel like you're starting from scratch, but you're not, right? You can have all those essentials that can still struggle. And here's where people get stuck. So let's take a moment and think about what happens when you speak to a group of people. Would you get in front, let's say somebody called you in and you were going to speak to 100 people. Would you get in front of a group of people and simply list out everything you know and do? Hi, I'm a therapist. That means I can help with depression, major depressive disorder, mid-depression disorder, anxiety. I'm throwing out weird things. Autism spectrum disorder. Like, would you do a bunch of bullet points? Or would you give a talk that was focused on the needs of that group, right? Most of us would be specific to the needs of the group. So, let's talk about tapping into your ideal client, right? So we're gonna go back to a little guided imagery. I'm a therapist at heart, y'all, so you know I love my guided imagery. So if it's safe to do so, if you wanna go ahead and close those eyes. And I first want you to bring up one of your favorite clients, your favorite sessions even of all time. One of those sessions where you just know that like, oh my gosh, this is like exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I was meant to do this work. I want you to bring up a particular session and I want you to bring up as much detail as you can. Notice the sensation in your skin, what you and your client were wearing, how it feels in your body, the emotions that come up. Notice what it feels like when you see that person's name on your caseload, on your calendar. What it feels like at the end of the session. Imagine if you had one of those kinds of clients every single day. What if you had 2 clients like that every day? What if every one of your clients you felt this deeply connected with every single day? Breathe that in and just notice how your body feels. And then I want you to bring up another kind of client. That kind of client where you're doing your best work, but like, man, oh man, it is not in flow. It is just not a good connect. Maybe it's just that depressed client, or maybe it's that client in an abusive relationship that's not leaving, or maybe you're not even sure what it is. Maybe they blame everybody. I don't know like what that thing is for you. But one of those clients where you see their name on your calendar and you just feel your stomach drop. You just kind of dread it. Where you're working at it, but like you're watching that clock. That end of the session cannot come soon enough. And in fact, sometimes you get so checked out, you'll end up going over with this client because you're like trying to make something happen. And you end up spending even longer with them, which is even harder. Notice what it's like if you have one of those clients every day, 2 of those clients every day, 10 of those clients every day. Would you feel excited to market your practice? To talk to other people about therapy? Would you have any energy after sessions to do anything? Feed yourself, go for a walk, right? So coming back in, notice that. What did that first client feel like? And the second, what if we worked with more clients that energize us? And we know that when we start to think about this and we get anywhere near this term niche, or becoming more specific about our ideal client, we get a lot of fears that our niche is too narrow. That kind of client that I want to work with is too narrow. And in fact, it's not. There's so much uniqueness, even within a particular niche. I think the other thing to know too is that you can market to multiple niches. What you can't do is try to speak to everybody on every single page of your website, or have just one page on your website that tries to speak to everybody, because you end up speaking to nobody. It's also really hard when we niche, because sometimes we get really fearful that people are going to feel rejected. Well, if I'm really focused on anxious client, what about the depressed clients? Well, guess what, y'all? I love an anxious client. I actually love working with domestic violence and intimate partner abuse. I love that. It's fantastic. That energizes me. That's okay. Let them come to me versus letting them come to you. Now, I don't want to work with depressed clients. It's like I can feel it coming off of them. It just pulls my energy down. It's really hard for me to navigate that. Right? And then it's also this place of like, oh, it's gonna be boring or limiting. You can have so much room to change and flow, to have multiple niches, to have a couple different streams of people coming in. And then again, people are so different. I think the other thing too is that often when we dive into the clients that we really love working with, it's connected with a group of people that look a lot like us, that they're people that have been through similar experiences. Maybe they're 2 steps behind our own development or experience, right? So what if your niche is you, right? And I think it can be really beautiful. And we just need to give ourselves permission to own that and honor it in such a way that we know that we're far enough away from it that we can really be good and effective. The truth is that tapping into your passion is going to lead to more referrals and a full practice with better clinical outcomes. Y'all, we cannot be amazing therapists that are up on the research and they're getting great outcomes with everything that's in the DSM-5. It's just not possible, and it doesn't make you a bad therapist. Yes, we should all have a general knowledge of these broad things, but when we start to dive into these pieces, people are looking for specialized help. So let's take a little quiz to help you solidify your niche and where you might want to focus your marketing a little more. So you can also take a little picture with your phone or take a screenshot if you're someone that takes a little longer to process, which is totally normal. There's no rush. Why did I go into this work initially? Right before you even got into graduate school, when you were applying, like why did you do this? Who are you excited to help heal? Like what was in your mind? What clients have you been able to work with in the most profound way? Which clients have felt kind of effortless to work with? Like maybe you're like, yeah, I'm doing like really hard, deep work, but somehow like there's this flow of energy, like, yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's always hard when I can't see all the chats happening on GoToWebinar or whatever. But you know what I'm talking about? Like, ooh, right? Which interventions, symptoms, and patterns do I love working with? And if I'm being honest with myself, who am I great at getting clinical outcomes with? Super shrinks the people. This is from Scott Miller's research. I apologize, I don't have the reference on the slide, but Scott Miller has dove into, and Barry Duncan, they've dove into what makes some therapists stand out. There's like the top 20% of therapists get 67% better outcomes than the rest of the therapists. And it's not based on hours of training. It's not based on how many years they've been in practice. It's not based on age. It's not based on any of that, right? It's really connected to clinical outcomes and being people who track and make adjustments over time to get better and better, people who really care. And you might be wondering, right, as we're talking about this, you might be saying like, wait, I'm going to fill my caseload. What about social media and blogging and speaking and freebies? And ads and all the rest of it? Like, what about all the things, right? An effective marketing plan is the intersection between how you best communicate, where your clients are, and how they take in information, right? So first, we really do need to have an idea, especially of the clients that you want to attract right now in particular, of your niche. Where are those clients and how they take in information, right? So if your clients are a 50-year-old woman who had children later in life, they're probably on the Facebook groups, right? Maybe for if your ideal client is a super granola woo-woo person who's exit 5G, they're trying to get off social media completely, right? We're not going to be on TikTok for those individuals, right? So we need to understand to make marketing easy, we need to understand who we're reaching out to and really think about where are they and how they take in information. And if you have some of those clients in your practice, then you can be thinking about what social media platforms are they talking about, if any? What kind of activities are they doing? Like what's important in their life? What kind of doctors or care providers are they going to? Right? Are they video? Are they people who love video and they're always talking about a YouTube? Are they always talking about music? Are they on Insight Timer doing meditations? Like what is the way that they communicate? Right? And I think like who does your niche talk to about their problems is another important part. And what other services does your niche seek out? Right? And again, how do they hear and how do they learn? What do they need to make a good decision? How do they take in that information, written, video, or audio, and where are they seeking information? Like I'm a huge Googler. I'm all about the Google. I'm not as much about searching on social media or even professionals or friends or mentors. Like I'm always going to start at Google and then go from there, right? And then we need to look at you. What aligns with who you are? How do you best communicate? How do you best communicate ideas? What kind of psychoeducation do you provide over and over again? What do you actually enjoy? Y'all, I don't want to lip sync or dance or make videos on social media. I have no desire, none at all. But this, having a talk, having a chat, like answering questions, being of value, yes, please sign me up. And that's the same in private practice. So what do you enjoy? And what do you most want to communicate to your clients? While I want to teach you about marketing, absolutely, I also want to teach you that like your whole life matters. I want to teach you that like you're really valuable as a human and that you shouldn't be burnt out and that deep desire that you have to find balance in your practice isn't just for you, it's also so you can get great clinical outcomes. Like I know that there's like a deeper place where all this intersects, right? So again, where your clients are, how they hear, and how you best communicate, that's the sweet spot of your unique marketing plan. So let's talk about once you're at that intersection, you're ready to take action, how do we do the thing, right? Let's talk about a marketing approach. It's kind of like a little table. You need all the legs on the ground for it to be stable. Sometimes we tend to focus on one area of marketing when there really is more diverse approach that will help you be more secure as you market. So step one, building referrals. Start with who you know, connect with who they know, and reach out to those who already work with your niche, consistently building authentic relationships. Step two, we gotta get online, y'all. We want that website ranking, blogging with keywords and search terms, specialty pages on your website, guest posting on other sites that rank higher. Understanding how traffic comes to your website. So directory listings, social media, Google business listings, these can be other things that can help drive traffic to your website as well. And then again, overarching, looking at the visibility through things like speaking or guest writing, being guests on podcasts, sometimes working with news reporters and journalists, adding videos to your websites and other directories, right? There are no cookie cutters, though. How you do your marketing will be uniquely yours because you and your clients are unique. It's a special combination that requires intention and planning in all of these areas, right? So no matter whether you're already successful, you're in that solo practice, whether you're in that successful group practice, or you're struggling solo or struggling group or starting from scratch or beyond the couch, coming back to these areas is always the key to creating a marketing plan that's really easeful, that's really sustainable, and that builds a practice that you actually are happy to come to, right? So some of you are saying, you know what, I actually have too many clients. Uh, I've met with a lot of people who are like, no, the issue is that I have too many clients, but they are the lowest paying insurance that it's not sustainable. And I'm at poverty level of income because I'm only getting reimbursed $35 a session before income taxes and self-employment taxes. Like, it's not sustainable. So you might be someone who's looking at that and going, ugh, I can't do this financially, right? Or you might be somebody who's saying, you know what, my practice is full, I'm making enough money, but I'm so burnt out at the end of the day because I'm not actually working with the clients I'd like to work with. This isn't sustainable. I feel like I haven't done my notes in 7 months because I'm so burnt out at the end of the session, right? So we want to hear from you, right? Are you ready to start to fill your practice without the burnout, with more ease and joy, right? Breathe that in. What's your takeaway so far, right? Let's go over what you learned today and celebrate it, right? Diving into that. You're going to live your joyful life. We're going to create a marketing plan that aligns with your dreams for your dream practice through a plan that really makes sense for you and your ideal clients. We went over the essentials you have for your marketing to work for you. We talked about that power of a niche and how to align your marketing with your ideal clients and you. Now, we know there's a lot more. We're here to help. What we've covered today is such a very small piece of the bigger picture. Even if we did a full day on marketing plans, we wouldn't get through all you need to know, right? It's sort of like what we see on the top, right? Is like, okay, someone's a joyful, balanced life. They have this full practice, group or solo. Maybe they have some courses or books or some other streams of income, but like all the stuff, just like what you see in others, behind what we're teaching, there's a lot more. If you feel less than, you aren't comparing yourself to truth at all. The real truth is there's a lot to running a private practice. We'd be lying to say it's always easy and simple, but you don't have to do things all alone, right? What if you didn't do it all alone? Imagine figuring out how to make this all unique to you in your marketing, because you aren't doing it on there. You actually have some experts and community behind you, supporting you, like the fabulous therapy sites that is doing this, right? Since when did we decide that you have to figure this all out, or you should already know all there is to know? That's what keeps us isolated from each other and from being more visible in our communities and marketing. You were meant for community and connection. That is how we heal and grow, right? So that is what we're all here for, to help you create, grow, and scale your effortless, profitable practice so you can live a life with more joy than you've felt in decades. We want you to regularly feel the meaningful impact and deep purpose of your work. So I'm going to hand it over to Therapy Sites, and then we're going to do some Q&A.
Thank you so much, Miranda. What a great presentation. You shared so much valuable information about how to build a successful practice in today's competitive landscape. At Therapy Sites, we also work with mental health professionals to help them create a professional looking website and ensure they can be found online where and when their clients are searching in order to help increase new client acquisition. We encourage the practices we work with to build a website that's a reflection of themselves, but also help them create a marketing strategy that allows them to achieve their goals. Our solutions make it easy to schedule appointments online, create a network of referrals via social media, and even the ability to interact with clients virtually anywhere from our telehealth platform. As a special thank you for being here today, we are extending a special webinar offer for 2 free months of any new website and SEO bundle, plus a $50 Amazon gift card. Take our poll if you wouldn't mind, and you'd like us to contact you to learn more about Therapy Sites and see how we can help attract more new clients to your practice. You can also send us a quick email at webinar@therapysites.com, or feel free to call us at 866-255 8745. Feel free to provide us any feedback about our event today via our post-webinar survey we'll be sending out. We do really appreciate you taking the time to participate today. So if you'd like to learn more about Therapy Sites, again, feel free to email us at webinar@therapysites.com or call us at 866-255-8745. Miranda, we did have a handful of questions that came in throughout the event, so let me just pop back over there. So one of the questions was, I'm not really struggling, but I want to have a pool of potential clients. How do I get started on that, right? Because it kind of sounds like almost like creating a wait list.
So
Like, yes, please vote
yeah,
for me.
I love this. So what we recommend is that if you're full, meaning those other pieces, we actually don't recommend a wait list. What we recommend is setting up a newsletter. And you
Okay.
do, in most cases, need to come up with a HIPAA, constant contact is a HIPAA compliant option for setting that up. And so what we will have our clients do is on their contact page, and there's some technical ways to make this really easy, but they'll switch out their contact page
Okay.
so that it becomes a newsletter page during that time. So then when you actually have an opening, you send out a list, send it out to the thing and say, hey, guess what? I'm not full. First come,
Okay.
first serve. Here's a link to my scheduler. So it really creates some room. It also helps you keep tabs on how well your marketing is doing. Because if your website just says, hey, I'm not taking new clients and there's no way for people to connect with you when you are full, then you don't really have a sense of like, well, no one's calling me, but I told them not to.
Right.
And again, if you have your thing set up that way and there's some room, but no one is getting on that list, that would give me some information that my marketing message wasn't that great. And again, are we paying attention to our SEO? Like, do you know do you know what people are searching for in your area? And this can get a little bit specific, right? And sometimes, like in Washington, D.C., I did this years ago. I was looking at the SEO for somebody, and there were so many people who looked for psychotherapists in Washington, D.C. But where I was from in Northern California, people looked for counselors and counseling, right? They didn't use the term psychotherapy. So there are some things that can shift and change from city to city and county to county about whether someone's looking for a therapist, a counselor, a psychotherapist. And then of course, our specialties, sometimes we go through all that stuff to go, I'm gonna pay for this amazing certification and I'm invested $10,000 so I can be so great at what I do because I know everyone's looking for fill in the blank. And then we don't actually set up our websites so that Google understands that we do that, right? So for example, an EMDR therapist is still, there's a ton of EMDR therapists. It's in some ways it feels very saturated, but when you actually go and look at how many searches there are for EMDR therapists in general and then by city, you suddenly go, oh, it's actually not that saturated. It's pretty wild, the amount of people that are specifically looking for EMDR. I say as an EMDR therapist, right? So
No, it's
there's a
just
lot
interesting to
of options.
evaluate. Yeah, it's interesting because you're searching for similar things, but in a slightly different way, and then having to determine, how that person would search so that you're popping up. No, that's a good point.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And it's not, I think the other thing too is people often will do their searches in a national way, like they're trying to rank for therapist, just the word therapist or EMDR
Right.
therapist.
Right.
But you actually really need to be very location specific. And I think also now that we have a lot more online therapists, people are like, well, but I can work with anybody in California or anybody in Michigan or what have you. But in some states, like in California, city-based searches are so much higher than state-based searches. So you're actually better off to market to a particular city than you are to market to the state, at least initially. And then again, when you're marketing from state to state, people don't realize, well, I'm now licensed or I have SIPAC, I'm licensed in 12 states. That means a marketing plan for 12 states, y'all. That means a lot more pages on your website. Like it's a
Yeah.
really big deal to actually utilize that. So when somebody comes to me and says, oh, I'm really struggling to get full, so I'm going to add on the certification, or I'm going to get licensed in another state, or I'm going to apply for this other thing. Usually it's a marketing issue.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you understand how to market what you have present and do that certification or do that licensure because it actually makes sense for you in particular, not as a marketing strategy. Neither of those things are good marketing strategies.
Right. One of the other questions was, as you had talked about building referrals, but I think that falls into place in regards to building your presence locally, right? If you're doing referral-based events, speaking events, referral and networking groups, it's all localized in many cases.
So this is interesting. It often is local. It really is often local. And I've walked people through doing this stuff online as well. So
Mm-hmm.
for example, I had a client who was actually moving from one state to another. So they did a ton of networking while they were in the other state virtually. So they were doing Zooms, they were doing blogging, they were doing, we call it networking as blogging, which is where they do basically blog interviews of other people to put on their website as a blog. And so it becomes a link for this other person. It provides content for them, and it also builds a relationship. So like one of our clients who's been doing this for years had been interviewing different people, and they weren't all people that she even had met in person. They were mostly local. And
Mm-hmm.
one of them, this is a great story. I think it's fun because she interviewed this person, and there was a publisher who was researching about a particular thing, and I don't remember what this particular specialty was, but they were researching somebody to write a book about this thing, and then they found her blog interviewing this other person, and they were so impressed with that material, then they reached out to her to pitch her to write a book, and she got a book publishing deal out of just her marketing for her practice, which I think is
Oh,
pretty rad.
that's cool. That's really cool. Um, as we talked about trying to find your niche and trying to pair yourself with maybe your ideal type of client, how do you best transition, right? Because if you've got a certain number of clients you're already currently seeing, but you want to, I guess the easiest way to say is I want to try and transition towards a different type of client so that I
Yeah.
have more joy in my life. How do I start that process?
So obviously, the first thing is to create a marketing message for who you really want to see.
Okay.
Is create that marketing message, and let's create a marketing plan and start to attract those individuals. And then we have a training, and you can, if you scan into this little QR code on the right, it's a free training, and it's called Outcomes-Based Conversations. And we give a script on how to do outcomes conversations with people. And that can be a really good way to do two things. One, sometimes it can help save from a client or a situation where it's like not fitting, but you can find your way through it to get them to graduation. Because that's part of the idea, is that like if it's not working for you, and it's probably not working great for them, and we
Mm-hmm.
really want to move them towards graduation or towards transitioning out. I think when we know that we have the kind of clients that we want coming in, we get
Mm-hmm.
a lot more confident about being able to really be honest with ourselves. Is this really the best clinical option for this person? If I'm burnt or Chris and I really don't want to see them anymore, like I really need to be honest about referring them out. I don't want to be keeping clients, like from an ethical perspective and from like a heart center perspective, to have somebody on just because I need them to pay the bills. It's not that that doesn't happen, but it's not ideal, and it doesn't leave our souls feeling good at the end of the day. Like it starts to really eat away at us. I
Mm-hmm.
remember that with actually a therapist that I really enjoyed. It was a little bit of sarcasm, but he would stand up and say like, my ideal client is anyone whose check clears, right? Now, I knew him well enough to know that he's just being funny and he's an excellent therapist, but like that at its core doesn't feel good, right?
Right.
Versus like
Right.
I really want to work with somebody who I know that they're gonna go, therapy was freaking amazing. Like that was what it was about. I don't want somebody to come in who finds me to be falling, like they're therapists that are falling asleep in session. that can't remember their clients from session to session. They haven't done the progress notes in weeks, months, years, right? Like that was a sign for me once. I was seeing this client and I'm so good about my notes, but not with this one client. I kept getting behind on this client because I was just so done at the end of every session. At a certain point, right? I had to really be honest and go, this is not good. This is
Right.
this isn't ethical, right?
Right.
It's legal. I wasn't a bad therapist, but like this wasn't the highest and best. This isn't like the kind of outcomes I want to get. I want somebody going like, whoa, this
Yeah.
changed my life. It changed my whole trajectory.
Right. We had talked a little bit earlier about trying to determine the most relevant search terms based on area, right? So somebody in
Mhm.
DC might be searching differently than Colorado than they are in California than they are in Chicago. One
Correct.
of the questions was, how do I determine that? Right? Do I just do a Google search, right? Like, is there a free educational book that I could buy, right? How do
No,
I determine
so
that?
it's a little bit of it's a software. It's different softwares that you can buy. There's a particular one that I like, and it's hard. It only costs $10. It's super cheap. It's like $10 a year. It's called Keywords Everywhere. What's hard is that it's not always like easy to use. So like I teach people how to use it in business school for therapists and show them exactly how to do it. But it basically makes it so that I can very easily do a search and figure it out. And then I will even give my clients like a little cheat sheet where they fill in like the city that they're in and any specialties that they have, and then it does a bulk report for them,
Hmm.
so that they can like easily see that. You can go and hire someone on like Fiverr, Fiverr.com, to do a keyword research for you. But I
Yeah.
found that they don't, those keyword research for therapists, they don't always like understand what we do.
Right.
Like they're used to doing it for plumbers and such, so it can be really hard. There's also some really great places to outsource, like SEO Simplified works specifically with therapists, and they work with our business schoolers as well. The part that's hard about that sometimes is that, it's quite the investment. If you're a group practice owner or something and you're already established, then investing in SEO isn't a big deal. But I think for a lot of people, when they're starting out or when they're struggling financially, to be able to understand and learn what it is. And I could imagine that's even the case. Like you have SEO services through therapy sites, but
Yeah.
the amount of therapists that don't understand what questions to ask and what to tell you
Right.
that they need. So
Right.
it ends up being this place of like, well, I paid the money, like, doesn't it magically happen?
Right.
And sometimes when I ask clients, like, are you showing up on the first page of Google? They go, yeah, I am. I'm like, for what? And they're like, well, when I type in my name. And I'm
Right.
like, well, a potential client isn't probably typing in your name. Do you understand what clients are searching for? No. Do you
Yeah.
understand where your client is ranking for like general searches? No. Do you know what people are searching for in your area? No. So
Yeah.
until you as a business owner sometimes can understand that information, it makes it really hard to work with a service provider like therapy sites
Yeah. Good
or with
point.
a standalone SEO company. It works really hard because you don't know what questions to ask and you don't know how to like convey what you're looking for. You're just like, I just want more clients.
Yeah. Right.
Like that's what you're just like, I just need more clients. Can you just make more clients for me?
Right.
And the
Right.
service provider is like, cool, but like, tell me more.
Right.
um,
Right. Yeah.
and
It's like,
some services, the places that you pay the most are going to do the most hand holding for the most
right.
part, right?
Right.
So having a little bit of information and understanding about SEO, I do think is helpful, um, to kind of dive in, and then you
Right.
can determine how much support that you need. I also think like at the end of the day, like when you understand the basics of what SEO is, it's actually a lot more intuitive than we give it credit for.
Hmm.
Like the whole idea is that Google wants people to use Google. And
Right.
so they want Google to be the place that gives you the answers to your questions.
exactly.
And that's because they're selling ad space, right?
Well,
So
right, exactly.
they want to be the most effective. They want you to look at it and type in, EMDR therapist in Oceanside, and you're gonna be like, yes, that's what I need. Because if you type that in, EMDR therapist in Oceanside, and you got a result for like one of those little EMDR, like EMDR training, you'd be like, I don't want an EMDR training. I want an EMDR therapist. Like, you're not giving me the right thing. So like,
Hmm.
if we give Google enough information, it wants to have expert people like us on the top of Google. Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't want link farms. It doesn't want people who are trying to game the system. It doesn't want black hat stuff, which is like people that, again, the people that game the system. Like, it
right.
doesn't want, yeah, it doesn't want people that game the system. It doesn't want people that are trying to cheat the process.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I
Well,
apologize for using the term black hat. I'm trying to, it's not a great term. We're working on, I'm still working on unraveling some of that language, but yeah, okay, back to questions.
no, well, I think, and this coincides with that topic, right? Is that sometimes you're also competing against the ZocDocs and, the big wigs, right? That are
Yes,
out in the marketplace. And
especially,
so it's difficult to compete in that way. So one of the questions was like, how do I get on top of page one of Google if I've got to compete with ZocDoc and Vitals and health grades?
okay, here's the best part, actually, and I think so here's the truth. Google actually likes you better than ZocDoc, health grades, that kind of stuff. If I see that on the top of Google, that's actually a sign to me that there's actually less competition for you. With who you're really competing with is more the actual therapists that are there, right?
Hmm.
Now, the part that's hard, this is who it's actually harder, especially if you're an online therapist, is when we're competing against BetterHelp, Grow Therapy, and some of these other ones where they are putting in tens of millions of dollars per month on
Right.
marketing. It is freaking wild the amount that they are pouring in on podcasts and on Google Ads and the rest of this. Now we know that 95% of startups, these tech startups, fail within the first 5 years. We know that there's a reason they're investing so much because they're trying to get a foothold in it. But those are actually the harder ones to compete with. But ultimately, as a provider, I don't want to, or not as a provider, as a person looking for therapy, I'm like, I don't know what to do with ZocDoc. That's actually not helpful. But when I see a website with a picture of a person and there's a video and there's some material and it's actually like a marketing message that like connects with me, that I'm like, oh, that's a person I can call. I don't want to look through a list of 15 people. So know that it's not ZocDocs and health grades that you're competing with. Go and list there just so that it'll give you some link juice back to you. But it is the growth therapy, the better health, that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, just because they have so much money with the ads that we're competing with a little bit. But some of those in the next like 5 years are going to shake out. And ultimately, most people that go to those kind of, and this may not be always accurate. There's really good therapists everywhere, let me be clear. But some of these programs, some of these online tech employers are not run by therapists. They're kind of therapy meals. They don't connect people based on expertise. They don't track outcomes. They don't care about outcomes. Many of them do not pay well. Some of them pay well, and then as soon as you're hooked in, then they start to pull down your pay. Like, there's some weird things that they do that's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
I mean, we all experienced it. We're all knowing it, that's
Right.
out there. So when we stand alone too, when we set ourselves apart as getting great outcomes and
Hmm.
building those relationships and showing Google who we are, this is the other part too, is the longer that your website, and this is specific to your domain, it doesn't necessarily matter your provider. So like if you've been with another provider and you move to therapy sites, if you have the same domain name, it doesn't, you still have the length of time. The
Hmm.
older your domain name, that is one of the things in the algorithm that Google uses to
Correct.
decide where you are at in the ranking.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's some other things like content is super important. So as you talk about niche and,
Blogging.
making sure that your pages have all of the information about all of the things that you do and being specific and, really relaying your message,
Yeah,
in your website, I think it makes a difference.
it's like 1,500 to 2,000 words on a specialty page that you want ranked. And then we want blogs pointing back to that particular specialty page.
Right.
So over time, I'm really encouraging people to put FAQs on every single specialty page that they have. And then like we'll give people like a 6-pack of blogs
Mhm.
that is an outline. You want to make sure it is specific content that's just on your website. Always your own content. But we'll have like here's the frequently asked questions about this with like some different headings, and show people even how to put the headings into ChatGPT to give different
Yep.
heading options.
Yep.
And then do your own writing, because that's the
Right.
other thing to know is that when you have ChatGPT or AI do writing for you, you cannot copyright that material.
Well, and not only that, but I think it's more impactful because it's coming in your words from
Correct.
your background, from your experience, right? And that's really what somebody is signing up for, right? They're signing up to work with you.
Correct.
You know,
Correct. And if
so
you like, if today you're like, okay, I like, because this is kind of a broad overview, right?
right.
Marketing message, marketing plan, what have you. In
Yeah.
the 15 hours of free training, we have like a whole training where we're just talking about the marketing message, and like
Right.
there's a download and like a worksheet to go through. We have a whole one that's just talking about the marketing plan, and there's a
Right.
download and like a go through. So know
Yeah.
that there's more resources for you.
Right. And I think it's a work in progress. I think that's something else for everybody to think about, that a website isn't built overnight, right? And that you're building the content, you're building the website, you're adding to it all of the time
Yes.
because you're changing, your practice is changing, your goals are changing, and that's going to be a reflection of your brand and your credibility online too. So,
Yes. And I think that's funny. Like, I just had a client today. They're like, my website has been up for 60 days. It's not on the first page of Google. And I was like, oh, bless your
right,
heart.
right,
So
right.
we're like,
I mean,
okay. And then again, we're like, all right, here are the pieces, and this is really good. And here's your first step, and then your second step, and we'll go
right.
from there.
Yeah. I know we're a couple minutes over, so I have just one last question. It was in regards to virtual versus in person. Are you seeing a shift back to more in person? Still seeing people, an influx of people wanting to, meet with people virtually, or kind of a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both,
Yeah,
honestly. We see more, we see people who are very, like they know, let's just say this. People that know what they like know what they like now.
right.
People are, I'm looking for in person and I want to sit down with a human, or, hey, I actually don't care, or actually, no, I really feel better online. There
Yeah.
are clients who specifically are like, no, I don't want to have to go in the office. I actually feel less anxious. I like feeling secure in my space. This
Yep.
helps me feel safe. I actually like the distance it creates. um, so it's all over the place. And when we look at the searches, again, it's all over the place.
Right.
I would still say there's probably more searches for in-person services or people looking for local than specifically to online.
Right.
So whether you, and again, I have clients that do only online, but they do market to the local area, and they still get people who come in to do online work with them.
Right.
And then again, I've had clients who like are somewhere in the middle of like, well, I really like being at home and what have you, but they have more clients that are like, no, I really want to be in person, and so they're moving back to in person because it's easier to market to
Right.
in their
Well, and I think
particular
Google
area.
sometimes gives a bit of a extra grade to those that are local, right? So when you're searching something like near me, it's prompting you to see who's in the map section. So some of those things are going to be impactful because you have a physical location or marketing to a specific
Yeah, just
area.
literally, if you can have a Google business listing with a
Yeah,
physical location, it's
yeah,
always going to have a benefit. Now, if you are doing, again, people talk about the like benefits of like, but I can see somebody from anybody where, and I'm licensed in 7 states. I'm like, but the marketing of it to get and stay at the top of Google and compete to everybody else that's on that particular state.
Yep.
Sometimes it's not as not as sexy as you think it is.
Well, or it's gonna be something that's gonna take consistent work, right? You know, that you're gonna have to consistently make sure that all of the pages within the website are all referencing the state. You know,
Yeah,
and it's
it's
tough. It's
it's
tough.
tough. It's expensive.
Yeah.
So like for example, I worked with a group practice owner and helped her launch an online group therapy practice that's all in California. Actually, two group practices in different pieces, but in California. And so they had to choose which cities in particular to rank for, and then keep the SEO up on all of those cities. Like
Right.
it's a big deal to navigate that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate all of the information you shared and sticking with us for a couple of extra minutes.
Sure.
Again, to all of the attendees, thank you for joining us. There will be a recording available, and all of the slides and all of our conversation will be recorded too. So if you needed to go back and take snapshots of some of the different screens and some of the different pages that Miranda ran through, those will be available. And I did post the zittime.com links, and I also posted the therapy sites links in there as well. So thank you again. Thank you, Miranda.
All right, thanks,
And thank you to
y'all.
everybody that joined us, and have a great afternoon. We'll talk to you guys soon, okay? Thank you.